Earlier this month, we brought you a story about Nathan's Law. Senate Bill 66 was recently brought up in Frankfort. It calls for grief training for the state's coroners and came about after a Lexington mother says the way in which she was notified about her son's death was not handled compassionately. After our story aired, it opened up a conversation among other coroners in the state. So we sat down with two who serve on the state's Coroners Association board to talk about death notifications and the training already on the books. It is not a job everyone seeks out, but between these two men, their duties as coroners in their respective counties spans decades. Ferris Markham serves Lincoln County, Jimmy Cornelison, Madison County, and both serve on the state's Coroners Association board. They know in their job many times they're delivering the worst news someone will ever receive.
My job is to help the families of our community and get them to understand that, what just happened. We're here for you to help you and support you.
Jimmy Cornelison says how a death notification is made is oftentimes subject to each individual coroner. There's not a standard process.
I couldn't tell you what another coroner does on death notifications. I know what I've always done. I know what I've taught to do to other organizations. And, you just never know on death notifications what the outcome is going to be.
Both Cornelison and Markham reached out after our story aired about Nathan's Law, new legislation proposed in Frankfort that calls for grief training for the state's coroners. The legislation came about after Lexington mother Stacy Burnett's 18-year-old son Nathan was killed in Utah last spring in a snowboarding accident. She says this note was all she was given from a Fayette County deputy coroner with not a lot of other details. She told us the manner in which she was notified was cold and is now calling for grief training for those making these types of notifications.
I've read studies, but I just know from experience how you find out about such a traumatic event kind of shapes your healing process.
Both Markham and Cornelison don't disagree with the call for additional training.
I'm for Nathan's Law. I'm not opposed to it. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful law. I think anytime we as coroners can further our education and make ourselves better, we're doing better for the people we serve.
Well, I definitely don't oppose it, and if there was a problem, is a problem, then we need to correct it.
What these two coroners do disagree with is that there's no training already on the books.
Well, we're mandated by statute to have training, and we have several different trainings throughout the year.
They say as part of their mandated training and free continuing education, all coroners are trained on best practices, and that includes how a death notification is given and the manner in which it should be handled. Does that mean additional training wouldn't hurt? Markham says he welcomes it. As president of the Kentucky Coroners Association, he recently spoke to some new deputy coroners, and there's one thing he says he stresses.
And I told them the hardest thing that they'll ever do in their career is do a death notification. And I told them there's no textbook, there's no you can't Google it. It has to come from your heart.
For Markham, he says he knows many of his fellow coroners and deputies are using compassion when making these notifications. Moving forward, no matter if Nathan's Law is passed, he says there is certainly always room for more discussion on this sensitive topic.
I think moving forward, I think this will be a topic of discussion. I think it may be something that may be heightened a little bit, may be expanded upon. So I think this is something that, we probably need to take a look at a little bit closer.
Both Markham and Cornelison tell me they always try and have as much information for families as they can and be available for the questions they might have. In talking with these coroners and Fayette County Coroner Gary Ginn, they all agree no matter the training, it is up to them individually to make sure that a death notification is handled respectfully, compassionately, and to instill that in their deputies as well. And by the way, Senate Bill 66 now sits in the Kentucky House.